The attempt to steal a Supreme Court seat in North Carolina has been rejected by a judge. Now, that rejection comes in response to a request from the Republican National Committee, the North Carolina GOP, the Wake County GOP, and two voters who wanted to toss out nearly 60,000 ballots cast in all November 2024 statewide races. Now, this has to do with the re-election of incumbent Democratic Justice Allison Riggs. She had retained her Supreme Court seat by a small margin. We're talking hundreds of votes, right? Against the challenger, Jefferson Griffin. Now, the results of that election was confirmed by two separate recounts. So there is no question that Allison Riggs has won. Now, that should be the end of it, right? Well, it wasn't. Those Republican groups have been trying to disenfranchise 60,000 legal voters so they could dominate the North Carolina Supreme Court. That's it. I mean, they already have more seats on the court, but no, nothing more than total domination. Now, they're claiming that tens of thousands of ballots should be thrown out because an alleged paperwork failure, right? So they're saying that the voters did not provide their license or social security numbers on their voter registration applications. According to the GOP suit, the state board, a named defendant in the case, processed over 225,000 voter registration applications prior to December of 2023 without collecting the required identification information, and it failed to take swift action to identify and remove so-called unqualified voters from the state's voter rolls. Now, this is pretty much identical to a separate RNC case filed back in August of 2024, which a court had dismissed in part ahead of the November general election. In a January 2nd motion for a preliminary injunction, Republicans asked a Wake County Superior Court judge to order the election board to immediately set aside these challenged ballots, contact voters to request the missing information, and remove from the final election tally ballots cast by voters who were unable to provide the necessary identification. Now, of course, the judge in this most recent order concluded that careful balancing of the equities cannot conclude by the greater weight of the evidence that a preliminary injunction is necessary to prevent immediate and irreparable harm. So what exactly happened here? Okay, well, it turns out that there is a voter ID law in North Carolina. So if you have to go to vote, or if you actually go to vote, sorry, then you have to bring your ID. Then why would you need that on your voter registration application if you're just going to go to the voting place and show your ID anyway? It doesn't make any sense, right? Why they're obsessing over this, unless, of course, you realize that it is about trying to obstruct legal voters, trying to disenfranchise them, keep them from voting, okay? Keep their ballots from being able to count because they lost this election. That's it. So the DNC noted, because they got involved as well, that all the registrants at issue proved their identities when they had first voted as required by law. Yes, by showing their IDs. And so there it is. Additionally, the Republican challenge was proven to be broader in scope compared to a previous challenge by Griffin himself, since it not only sought to remove the ballots in the state Supreme Court race, but also in completely undisputed state and local races. So this is classic Republican overreach. Not only are they like, yeah, get rid of the ones in that race that we lost. No, not just those, but let's get rid of all of them, all 225,000. Oh, yeah, let's disenfranchise all them people. Wow. Now, another point to note, unlike Griffin's lawsuits, the recent GOP action did not raise any claims against ballots cast by certain overseas voters. So that was something that Griffin was trying to do as well. Now, but here's the thing. This basically was an attempt by the Republicans at voter suppression based on technicality. So what do I mean? The form in question did not have a box for you to write your driver's license number or your social security number. And at the end of the day, you don't really need to have that box, but or those boxes, but apparently that is now state law. Okay, but that state law not having those forms, that's not the voters' fault. Why should their votes get thrown out for something that was a paperwork error? It's the state board of elections' fault. Okay, and in their brief, the DNC argued that the GOP seeks to, quote, delete the votes of tens of thousands of voters in every state and municipal election, not because those voters are ineligible or did anything wrong. They're quite eligible, as they already had to show their ID, but because of an alleged record-keeping problem. The DNC cited state and federal laws that establish that once an eligible voter is added to the voter rolls, a minor issue with their registration application is not grounds to nullify their vote. Yeah. Last week, Democratic Justice Anita Earls had also argued, and she's one of the people on the state Supreme Court. She said at bottom, the timing of Jefferson Griffin's claims speaks volumes about their substance. By waiting until after the votes were cast and the results tallied, Griffin seeks to retroactively rewrite the rules of the election to tilt the playing field in his favor. She also argued that he had no proof of his claims. These legal arguments rest on factual assumptions that he has failed to prove. These claims, sweeping as they are, could and should have been brought long before voters went to the polls. From the court's indulgence of this sort of fact-free post-election gamesmanship, I dissent. Now, the majority Republicans on the court were like, let's hear your case. Let's hear your case, right? But it turns out this case was a nothing burger, okay? These lawsuits have been rightfully rejected because, once again, there was no evidence of any kind of fraudulent activity or any proof that these voters were ineligible, okay? And so there's no reason to throw out all those votes. That said, here's the problem that I see with all this. All right, even though this is a victory, this challenge is going to continue to be the norm going forward. Every time a Republican loses now, okay, if they lose, they're going to go straight to the courts. Why do you think that MAGA wants to control the judiciary? They control the courts. They control the elections. That's why it was such a disaster that Democrats haven't paid as much attention to these court races as they should. Okay, because the Republican Party, since Trump, has successfully reshaped the judiciary, and they were very, very, it's very, very effective now, and it's having huge repercussions all the way up to the Supreme Court, which has made a lot of very bad decisions when it comes to democracy. But it even filters down to these lower court decisions. And so these Republicans, if they lose an election now, they immediately go right to litigation. That's why these cases matter so much. Reese is one of the few Democrats on the bench in that state. Now, this decision, her being able to fight off this challenge, does mean that Republicans not only lose the seat, but I'm hoping that maybe next time, instead of, trying to get the court to steal a race that they didn't win, maybe they should, go out and try to actually win the next one. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.